Welcome. I'm Bully,
And I'm Mandy Morose.
and we are Table Goth. And tonight we're going to be talking about the discipline Dominate. Speaking of Dominate, don't be Dominate to sign up. If you want to play games with us, go to startplaying.games. I run games, and Mandy's in some of them too. Maybe at this time, I don't know when you're watching this, but hopefully just go there, search for Table Goth, and if you actually want to play Vampire the Masquerade, put some of these skills and knowledge that you've learned through these videos to the test, your chance to do so is there. It's really fun. We're great at this, obviously. And if you want to see how the pros do it, or you want to play in a game with us and see that literally anyone can do this, look for us there. And also, look for the Vampire Player's Guide on Storyteller's Vault. If you want more Dominate powers, or more any powers, or merits, or flaws, or predator types, or any of that stuff, they're on that book. It's a cool book. It gives you a lot more options to play with. So check that out too. Okay, so we're talking about the discipline Dominate. What Dominate lets you do is control others' actions. You can manipulate their memories. Essentially tell people what to do, supernaturally command them, dominate them mentally.
It does require eye contact unless you're using Presence 4, which is irresistible voice. It is a contested role to catch the eyes of someone actively avoiding it.
If you're trying to use Dominate in combat, it can only be used on people directly attacking you, which means they're probably looking at you, or some sort of other interaction with the user.
And you must be able to make the command verbally, and the target must be able to hear and understand the language. Telepathy, which is Aspects 5, is a way around this.
You can't give commands to someone that would result in death or any sort of serious injury, though, like everything else we've said a million times, there's an exception. If you get Terminal Decree, the level 5 Dominate power, you can tell people to do whatever you want. But without that, people or the victims will have a contested role to be able to resist doing anything that would be too against their nature or that might put them in harm's way.
You can also not use Dominate to extract information, as the victim is a mindless puppet while under the effect. It can't be used to make someone sleep or do other actions not typically possible on immediate command.
I'm looking at you. I don't know who, but people try to do the sleep thing a lot.
I didn't.
It's goofy. Don't do that. Unless you want to. On my table? I don't know why I did that. I don't use sleep. We gotta get through this. Any vampire of a lower generation can just spend a point of willpower to resist any Dominate effect that's being used on them from a vampire of a higher generation. So it sort of balances out to where a new vampire can't get a lucky roll and like command a prince or an elder to do something. If they got willpower, they can always resist it.
With a total failure of a Dominate roll against a target, this makes the target immune to further Dominate attempts from the user for the rest of the story, which sucks ass. I don't like that.
Sorry.
I don't like it.
Use of this power can incur stains, especially if you're commanding someone to do things that can sort of strip away their freedoms and agency or lead them to violate some of their personal convictions.
And Dominate is a mental ability. It's low threat against the Masquerade, and it is used with like I always mess this one up. Phlegmatic resonance. I got phlegmatic right. We joked about this the last time I had to say phlegmatic.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
And when you add a low threat to the Masquerade, you know your stuff.
It's the 5 hands.
That's our other sponsor. Medication in general. This is an in-clan discipline for Venture was sort of the main ones that you think of when you think of Dominate. But a lot of other people have it, such as the Lasombra, the Malkavians, the Salubri, the Tremere, the Zemitsi, and the Hakata are certain bloodlines of them.
One of the first powers you can get with Dominate is Cloud Memory. You just simply say forget, and the last few minutes are wiped out of their brains.
Another level 1 Dominate power is Compel, which you can issue a single action command, no longer than a short sentence, to be obeyed to the letter. Generally, the command has to be something that would only take about a turn to do.
Moving along, Mesmerize. This allows you to use complex commands, but they cannot have conditional actions.
Then there is Dementation, which is a amalgam that requires to obfuscate 2. This is sort of typically thought of as tied to the Malkavians. It allows a vampire to slowly attack and unravel the mind of a victim throughout a conversation, causing willpower damage and leading to nervous breakdowns in mortals. And if a vampire were to lose willpower through this, they would automatically go into some sort of compulsion.
And this is one I hadn't heard of before. Domitor's Favor makes resisting commands more difficult for blood-bonded thralls. It's made at a 3 dice penalty, and no willpower can be used on them. A total failure means that the blood bond does not weaken that month.
Yeah, that's from the Companion. Forgetful Mind is a dominant power that lets the vampire rewrite entire events and portions of memory, describing new memories and essentially sort of just painting over the old ones. So not only can you make someone forget, but you can tell them how things really went, according to you.
One of the coolest ones, I think, as far as a long game goes, is Submerge Directive. You can implant suggestions using Mesmerize, allowing conditional commands or dormant suggestions until a specific stimulus occurs. Only 1 per victim, but this can last for years. So you can really play a very long game, which I think is pretty cool.
There's also Rationalize. If you've rationalized, your victim believes anything they did under Dominate was their own idea. Also, a good long game one. Dominate's is so good. This is one of the few using the base powers that I think is hard to pick which to take. Because a lot of them have like, oh, this is kind of the cooler one, or like, I'm going with this. Because like Submerge Directive and Rationalize are both on the same level, but like they're both so good. But can't have them all.
Well, with mass manipulation, you can. You can use powers against the entire group. All victims need to be able to see your eyes of the user, and the roll is against the strongest opponent in the group. So you can catch them all.
Finally, we have Terminal Decree. With Terminal Decree, the victims are willing to carry out acts that would cause themselves harm or even death. Another kind of hard to pick one, because mass manipulation, Terminal Decree, both very, very good. What are your thoughts on Dominate? How do you feel about Dominate? You played a Malkavian. You had Dominate, technically.
I played a couple of characters with Dominate, and it was nice. It was cool. It takes so much of the work out for your character, because you just put it on someone else. Just tell them to do something, and either they do it for you, or like they're subdued enough to listen to you. And that's really nice to not have to just fight constantly. If you subdue everyone with your words, then it takes a lot of the danger out of it.
Yeah. I think Dominate's also cool as a measure of a vampire's humanity, because watching how a kindred uses Dominate, where like a lot of things you just have a conversation with someone and maybe try to actually sway them, versus the ones who just become real reliant on like, I don't need to talk to you or make you see things my way or agree with me because you're doing it now. Yeah. Which is like super convenient. So it's even more alluring, I think, for vampire to slip into that side of their monster, I guess, and really kind of separate them from like humans. This is also from a storyteller perspective, can be super annoying, because again, you can have whole cool scenarios of like, all right, it's a game of political horror. How are you gonna talk your way out of this? And I just dominate them, and they forgot this happened or that happened. I'm not in trouble anymore. Which, because it can still have problems, but it's great. It feels really cool. I also think it's like a quintessential vampire power. A lot of different lore across different vampire media, like vampires can charm or hypnotize people, and it's kind of what the dominate reflects. But also is a real easy, just like I win button, especially once you get up to level 5. So prepare for that if you see your players getting up there. Not to say stop them. There's a lot of fun that can happen with it, but it changes the game for sure.
I think at least though, with the higher abilities, there's some cleverness that is required, like with Submerge Directive, or, you know, some of those like bigger ones, like mass manipulation. I feel like you at least pay for it with having to be clever. I think specifically with Submerge Directive, like that is really for people who think about like a larger story. So at least with that, there's some like adding to a bigger story rather than just like taking an easy way out.
That's a good point. Actually, yeah, that kind of like makes me think that this power is also one that really rewards creativity. Where like two different players or two different characters with Submerged Directive, for example, could be wildly different in effectiveness or creativity with how they use it. It can seem like broken with one person, another person can just seem like pretty convenient. Where a lot of the other disciplines, two people with the same power are getting the same results. This is such a wide swath of results you could get by using it that actually rewards the player creativity, which is cool. This is also one that I think from the get-go is really good. Like it's level 1s, I think, kind of, again, people who talk about balance and stuff, this isn't that kind of game, because it's not a balance around combat like other games. It's just you could do anything. So some powers are really useful but will be useless in other situations. But this one, like, I think of like Compel, like any mortal, you don't even have to roll rouse check. You just get to do this, do that, and they don't get to roll against you if they're unprepared. Versus like level 1 Protean, as you can see in the dark, those feel very different as far as like stuff you can do from the jump. I
think this one is really nice no matter what type of interactions you're having. Like Protean seen in the dark, it's great if you're in a tunnel a bunch, but you know, this is good for any type of interaction, especially against mortals or, you know, whatever you're doing. You can kind of find a way to use any of these abilities no matter the setting, which is really nice.
Dominates. Yeah, I was excited about it. I no longer like Dominate, but I was going to say probably one of my favorites, because again, I love that it like rewards creativity. It feels so good to like come up with a really cool Submerged Directive, or the Forgetful Mind to like repaint what happened and like setting someone else up because this person thinks someone else was involved. Like some of that stuff, so rewarding, so good. But also, the nice thing about Dominate, talking about how good it is, it balances real nicely, and sometimes people forget that like any older vampire just spends willpower and sorry, it doesn't work. Yeah. Which is
it's a nice check.
Yeah, a nice check, a nice balancing aspect. And also kind of humbling, especially if you're a neonate that's been running around using it a lot and starting to feel good about yourself, and then you forget that they could do that. You try to use it on someone else and they're like,
ooh, and it's so shitty in a game when it's used on you.
Yes.
Especially by a more powerful, like, individual. And it's always, like, the moment where you feel like you're about to, like, have the upper hand against, like, your greatest enemy. And then they fucking pull that shit out, and it's the worst.
Yeah. Another good storyteller thing that you brought up is it's, as much as storytellers should be ready for their game to change when players get it, it's such a fun storyteller tool. Where does this this fall for you in your list of disciplines?
I like a lot of the mental disciplines, so Dominate is on the higher end for me. I like all of those like mind manipulation types of things, because again, you can use them in so many different settings, and they do take away the identity in a lot of ways of the people that you're dealing with or the kindred that you're dealing with, and that is a lot of power, I think. Dominate is on the higher end for me.
Read it. Dominate's great.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah, that's it. That's our outro. Bye.
That's essentially what we say.
I feel like I'm doing really good.
It sounds like an episode of Bob's Burgers.
Is that good or bad?
It's my favorite.
You're doing a really good job of looking at the camera, I've noticed. I actually have it look. Now I'm looking at your face.
Adderall.
I'm looking at your camera. I don't like the drop you. It's the Adderall.
From one of our first photo shoots for Tablecloth.
That's not. I wish I was drunk for that.
I'm pretty sure we were hammered.
We might have been, actually.
We went to...
Did I say hello? That doesn't sound like me.
Hello, I'm Bully.
Do I say hello?
I'm Andy Rose.
Do I say like welcome or something cooler?
Welcome. You say welcome. Because you're like welcoming them to your table.
No, now it sounds stupid. It's cringy.
Okay, well, you're the one.
I do say welcome,
Yeah, I know.
but not like that.
What are you welcoming them to?
You might be the first person that I don't mean this in an insulting way, but I could see you as like a ventriloquist.
Dude, my...
What?
my Putinesque. Weak little woman.
That's a new voice. Okay.
Listening to a lot of audiobooks, so...
Do they talk like that?
Sometimes it's bad.